Welcome to another Bible study. Today, we're going to be studying about the blood of the Lamb, or you can say the life of the Lamb. I have put together some information that I would like to share with you that I got off the internet, and also some scriptures that I got from the Bible that can maybe better explain what is meant by the blood of the Lamb. This is something that some of us are familiar with, and I think it is a very deep subject, and I would like to share the information that I have gotten. And maybe if you don't understand about the blood of the Lamb, by the end of this study, you will have maybe a different view, or you might add the information that I'm giving you to your view and maybe make your view broader than what it is. First, we have to define what is blood. Blood is the fluid of life, transporting oxygen from the lungs to body tissue and carbon dioxide from the body tissue to the lungs. Blood is the fluid of growth, transporting nourishment from digestion and hormones from glands throughout the body. Blood is the fluid of health, transporting disease-fighting substances to the tissues and waste to the kidneys. Because it contains living cells, blood is alive. Red blood cells and white blood cells are responsible for nourishing and cleansing the body. Without blood, the human body would stop working. That will be the definition of blood. And also the blood of the Lamb. And we know with the Passover, this lamb has to be an innocent lamb. Well, this is my view. Children are born innocent. And every single human on earth at one time was a child. And the innocence of a child refers to children's simplicity, their lack of knowledge, and their purity, not yet spoiled by mundane or worldly affairs. Mundane. Now, the antonyms for mundane is unworldly, spiritual, heavenly, and supra mundane. Now, this is the first scripture that we'll read. That was just giving you some background on the blood of the Lamb. We're talking about life, because life is in the blood, and we're talking about an innocent lamb, which is the child. Revelations chapter 7, verse 14 reads, "And I said to him, Sir, you know." So he said to me, "These are the ones who came out of the great tribulation and washed their robes or their outer garments and made them white in the blood of the Lamb," or within the blood of the Lamb. I looked up some words to see what the biblical usages were for tribulation. And those biblical usages are a pressing together, pressure. Also, there's a metaphor meaning oppression, affliction, tribulation, distress, straits. Oppression means a prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. Have you came out of affliction or prolonged, cruel treatment? Some people are waiting on a great tribulation and not remembering they have came out of a great tribulation. When you were removed from that distress, did you cover yourself with the life of your innocence? Remembering where you originated from or who you are at your core before the worldly affairs. The unjust life you lived cannot cover you because it is not an innocent life, but the life you had before someone sacrificed you and killed your innocence has the power to cover your unjust behavior. Remembering that day when someone rose up against you, that day when your life changed. We're going to go to another scripture in Genesis chapter 4, and we're going to read verses 8 and 10. It says, "Now Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field," I would say also at God's altar, "that Cain rose up," or his ego rose up against Abel his brother and killed him. Another word I like to use for killed is eat. Also, to slay. So we can say this, with the information that we have already about what killing is, we can say Cain could have pressured Abel. Cain could have oppressed Abel. Cain could have afflicted Abel. Cain caused tribulation upon Abel. Cain caused distress upon Abel. Cain prolonged cruel or unjust treatment or control over Abel. Some interpretations of this scripture, Cain might be stabbing Abel with a knife. This interpretation sets your mind to think of a physical death and not a spiritual death. When we read in verse 10, it says, "And he meaning the Lord, said, 'What have you done?' The voice of your brother's blood," or your brother's life, "cries out to me from the ground." When I think of this as a silent cry. A silent cry is mostly seen in small children or adults. It is the cry that is invoked by a person when they are in such extreme pain or agony that they are screaming or crying so loud that it appears that nothing is coming out, when in fact it is really so loud it can only be heard by God. Abel was crying out to God, and the scripture says God heard him. If you are a person who had a silent cry and didn't think no one heard you, I want to tell you, God did. In your pain, in your agony, screaming, crying so loud that God heard you and felt your pain. There's also some other scriptures in the Old Testament that we can read to shed light on the subject. This will be coming from Leviticus chapter 17, verses 11 through 14. "For the life of the flesh is in or inside the blood, and I have given it," which is the blood, "to you upon the altar to make atonement. The word atonement, a definition is cover over with pitch. That's what atonement means, or that is one definition that is used for atonement. So you up on the altar to make atonement for your souls, for it is the blood that makes atonement for your soul. And another definition for soul is activity of the character. So if you can imagine, like pitch, like let's say in Noah's Ark, when they put that pitch or that tar on the ark, that is something like atonement, or that would be an example of atonement. Or with Moses, when his the boat or whatever they put Moses in, that tar, that can, I think it was like a basket, that also is like an atonement. And in verse 12, it reads, "Therefore I said to the children of Israel, no one among you shall eat or consume or slay blood, nor shall any stranger who dwells among you eat blood." Again, instead of using the word eat, we can use the word consume or slay. And basically also instead of blood, you can put in life. So we can read, "Therefore I said to the children of Israel, no one among you shall consume or slay life, nor shall any stranger who dwells among you consume or slay life." Now we're going to be reading verse 13. "Whatever man of the children of Israel," the children of Israel is God's chosen people, "or of the strangers who dwell among you, who hunts and catches any animal or bird that may be eaten, he shall pour," or another word for pour is to shed, "out his blood and cover," or atone it, which is the blood, with dust. "For it, which is the blood, is the life of all flesh." Every flesh. That means even you and me. The life's blood sustains its flesh or its life. "Therefore I said to the children of Israel, you shall not eat, or you shall not consume or slay the blood or the life of any flesh. For the life of all flesh is its blood. Whoever eats it or whoever kills it shall be cut off." If you catch an attitude, your mind changes and a separation feeling starts. The ability to understand and share the feelings of another person ends, like something died inside. That is an example of what being cut off feels like. It gets worse the deeper that you go into that hole. My thoughts are predators prey on people they consider innocent. The spirit is acting out what the flesh does not understand. They think they can have their pain covered by violating an innocent person, just like the lamb. When that does not fix them on the inside, they find another innocent person. They realize their healing has to come from an innocent life, but that innocent life is the one that was taken from them. Remembering it was not your fault, someone violated you and murdered who you were. Before Jesus, God was covering sin. We cover one another with our story, how we were sacrificed. Being vulnerable with each other, exposing ourselves to the afflicted to win a soul. Leviticus was one passage, and now we can look at another. This is in Exodus chapter 12, verses 3 through 7, verses 12, and verses 13. And it starts off, "Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th of the month, every man shall take for himself a lamb, according to the house or the abode of light and darkness." That's another definition of house. "Of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it, or the lamb, according to the number of the persons. According to each man's need, you shall make your account for the lamb." Your lamb should be without blemish. Without blemish means to be innocent. A male of the first year. You may take it, the innocent lamb without blemish, from the sheep or from the goats. Verse 6, "Now ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it. Kill the innocent lamb at twilight, and they shall take some of the blood and put it, which is the seed of life, the blood, on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the houses where they eat it." And then verse 12, "For I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night, and will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord." In verse 13, it reads, "Now the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass, or I will skip over you." And this is what the blood prevents. "And the plague, or the striking fatal blow, shall not be on you to destroy you, and when I strike the land of Egypt." In the New Testament, it is no different. If we can remember, in the Old Testament, in Leviticus chapter 17, verse 11, it reads, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that makes atonement for the soul." So as we can see that the blood, right? But it's the blood is the life of all the flesh, all flesh. So we can read in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 7. "In or inside him, we have redemption or freedom through his blood, the seed of life, the forgiveness of sins according to the riches of his grace." Now, we can see even in the Passover that the Lord was going to skip over the house, or the houses that had the blood on it. Well, if he skips over you, that is a sign of forgiveness because of the blood. And then the note says, "Life of the flesh is in the blood. All flesh, even Jesus." If we read in Revelation chapter 12, verse 11, it reads, "And they overcame him, which is the serpent, by the blood, or the seed of life of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to death." The word of their testimony, that means when they were violated. Every person has to believe that innocent lamb is you before the worldliness was imputed in you. We can also read in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 22. And according to the law, almost all things are purified with blood, and without shedding or unrestrained pouring of the blood, there is no remission or freedom. Now, here's some definitions of blood to give us another broad example. Blood, life cycle, individual soul, seed of life, life force, heart, spirit, heartbeat, inner personality, breath, life blood, life principle, the vital life, biological clock, and also spark of life. Share your story, how the innocent child you used to be was violated. There is healing in your story for yourself and also for others. This will conclude the study. I hope the information that I presented before you was beneficial to really know that the blood of the Lamb is really inside of you. It's something that you experienced. It is something that you have access to. It is the time when you were sacrificed, just like that lamb was sacrificed. You used to be innocent, and somebody took that innocence. Remembering that story and acknowledging that story and sharing that story will save lives, even yours. Thank you.